All right, so I'm on Delta, flying back from the Masters.
No free ads, though. No free ads?
They had 600 movies on, and it's like a 4.5 hour flight. And I'm like, this will be good. I'll make myself useful. I'll do a Rewatchables like scouting mission. So I started sending CR some titles. I'm like, CR, you pick the movie. Here, I threw him the car keys. It was like the Trent Dilfer story about Mark Sanchez.
Yeah.
Throw these guys the car keys, Mark Sanchez will grab them. So I threw CR the car keys and I sent him like 11 titles. And he reminded me his dream was to do Alien on the Rewatchables.
What were among the 11 titles, though?
I don't know. We're saving them for later.
You won't even mention them.
I feel good. I think the feed can last like another 4 months.
Great.
As I went through the Delta
great.
Library, I was actually got reinvigorated.
The last Rewatchables goes up on draft night. Wemby goes to Houston.
Simultaneously. So why this movie? Why do you love this movie so much, CR?
Oh, man. So it's just a perfect horror movie, a perfect work movie, and a perfect sci-fi movie. And to steal something that the producer and co-writer David Giler said about it, it's a B movie done as an A movie. So it's basically like a really cool genre movie that could have been not bullshit, but it would have just been like, oh, that was a cool sci-fi movie, or that was a cool horror flick. And then they get this guy, Ridley Scott, to direct it, coming off of his first film. And they get this incredible cast, including the star of the film.
You didn't want to give the Duelists a plug? You just skipped right over that?
It's not. We're
you
not
don't want to talk
doing.
1801 France?
You want to do Rewatchable? Oh, look who did his research. That was a long flight.
Research. That's a good movie.
Great movie.
And so it's like, what if you made a B movie as an A movie, as an art movie almost?
Sean?
I love it too. I definitely don't love it as much as Chris, but it is one of the most important movies of the 20th century for sure. I think it's the culmination of a generation of kids who watched mediocre genre movies applying incredible technology to A+ production.
Yeah.
And
all those weird sci-fi movies from the 50s that were on when I was a kid.
Right. Yeah,
that were all
It
terrible.
Came from Beyond Outer Space and all those movies. And, Ridley talks about, everything that he pulled from that inspired him. Dan O'Bannon, one of the co-writers of the movie, talks about things he literally pulled out of EC Comics from the 50s. But I think it's basically like it's the baby of the two most significant movies that came right before it. It's Jaws and it's Star Wars. And you take those two movies and you kind of smash them together. You apply a slightly grimier aesthetic and you get Alien.
Here's the thing though. If you start saying like what it's pulling from and what influenced it, you could talk for an hour. Because there's also an element of it that Ridley Scott wanted to make Texas Chainsaw Massacre in space. There's also the elements of it that obviously like Walter Hill and David Giler were
my guy
sprinkling a little bit of like 70s blue collar, like working class, like let's make movies about real people kind of dust over this script, because the people in this movie are essentially just like, they're grunts, man. They're just like punching the clock every day, and they're bringing back all this ore from a planet back to Earth. It's not like they're astronauts. They're not soldiers. They're not scientists, really. They're just like, hey, man, like they're space truckers, which is what they were always referred to.
What year, like Game of Thrones was in the 1300s. What year are we in Alien?
87, I think. Right after Mike Scott and Nolan Ryan kind of lead the Astros.
Got it.
I don't. Okay. It's like 20.
So we're a little bit ahead.
It's 2050 something, I think. And I used to know the timeline better, like the back of my hand, but like it's
science fiction used to work so much better before we kept moving along in the decades and realizing that some of this stuff is like, oh, that's never going to happen.
Yeah.
Like this, like Escape from New York's another good example. It's like, oh, 18 years from now, New York is a maximum security prison. Okay. And then it was 1996. It's like 1997's next year.
Yeah.
This isn't happening.
We just passed the Blade Runner year, didn't we?
We did.
Yeah.
But you have had some experience with hypersleep and all your experiments with cryo. So some things
that
come
scene
true.
really resonated with me. In fact, I went online to see if I could potentially get it.
Can I sleep for 10 years
I was like,
can
my
have
whole
hot
family
takes about Bronny?
Could the dogs? Could the dogs sleep with us? Like, how does this work?
Yeah.
Would my dogs live longer? So we love the 70s. We try to go back to the 70s every once in a while, to the chagrin of some people.
I don't think with this one.
Fuck
Not
them.
with this one.
Yeah, this is.
You start with 75. We already did Jaws. That creates basically the summer popcorn movie. And then 77 Rocky creates the sports movie in 76, basically the modern sports movie.
Did you wear, is this method potting? Are you wearing the Star Wars shirt
I did a little,
to get
I
you in?
did an intentional Star Wars shirt, Star Wars 77. Hey, outer space, that looks cool. That becomes dominant. Halloween 78. And then Alien, which combines a bunch of these different things. But I was looking at the movies from 77 to 83 that had like aliens or outer space in it. 77 had Star Wars and Close Encounters. They were number 1 and number 3 in box office. 78 had Superman, which I count as an alien movie.
It is.
Superman's a fucking
It's
alien.
from another planet.
Yeah.
No question.
That was number 2. Alien in 79 was number 5. Empire in 1980 was 1. E.T. was 1 in 82. And then Jedi in 83 was 1. And then everybody's like, oh, aliens. And then that's just, they'll never stop making these now.
You're a little bit older than us, and so you can remember this maybe a little bit better, but were you like enchanted by outer space? Like, was there something in the ether that was like, we want to...
You're not a real sci-fi guy.
No, I was more, I think it was just the people I went to elementary school with who really got into Star Wars and some of this stuff. And I was like, I hate those guys. And let's watch Rocky again. Rocky 2 is coming out soon.
Hate those guys more than you wound up hating guys like Troy from Reality Bites in
No,
college?
then it took another level.
Yeah.
If Troy from Reality Bites had like Star Wars, I definitely would have punched him in the face. But yeah, they pitched this. The writers pitched it as Jaws in space, and then Ridley Scott tried to make Texas Chainsaw Massacre in space. So we're already like mishmashing things that worked, and it feels like it's the perfect way to end 1979 and the 70s with like a Mad Libs awesome movie that then creates...
There's one other thing that I think circles the square for why the three of us probably really get this movie, which is 2001 being a huge influence on Ridley. And that being a movie that he saw and felt like, I have to make feature films. Like what Kubrick accomplished, how he conceived the world. Like he's kind of obsessed with that movie, even when he talks about Alien, and it really has a big ego and he knows what he's accomplished in his career. But he still talks about Kubrick like there's really no one who was able to accomplish what he did. So if you take 2001, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Star Wars, Jaws, Francis Bacon, all this other stuff, that you start to smash all of these things together and you can still make something that feels completely original. There's nothing else like Alien.
Also, this movie has something in common with Escape from New York and Halloween and some of the other ones that we like genuinely love, The Warriors, that it's patient.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah. It's
that first hour.
Takes an hour.
It's a thinking movie. It makes you earn it. And even like at the end, which I think if they made like the last 20 minutes of this movie now, the alien would be chasing her around the spaceship. There would be way more thrills. She'd stumble over somebody's dead body. They don't do it that way. It's actually like more scary that she's just running around the spaceship and we don't really see anything.
No.
But if that almost makes it scary. It's like in Halloween, we don't see Myers. He doesn't actually kill somebody for over an hour, but that's kind of what makes it scary. And like Pauline Kael wrote about this movie. She wasn't a huge fan. She was also like 1980 losing the grip on the steering wheel a tiny bit. She was starting to get mad at where movies were going and was starting to drift into her stuff. But she said,
like you now.
Honestly, true.
You're
kind of like
your
Sean.
Kael phase.
I'm souring, yeah. But I'm also a bad writer, so I don't even have Kael's gifts.
You're a really good writer, and your Russell Westbrook piece will live on for the rest of our
Bill.
lives.
Thank you,
and
I
everybody
appreciate
else's life.
That was
Pauline
my
Kael
finest
wrote,
hour.
Thanks for that.
Audiences have been so corrupted by television and have become so jaded that all they want are noisy thrills and dumb jokes and images that move along in an undermanding way so they can sit and react at the simplest motor level.
Such a interesting read of the movie that I feel like
I would have thought she would have loved this movie.
Yeah.
This has so many things that she
some
liked.
of those reviews that you see from her, and even just of the time, it's like, boy, if you guys had known what had happened after this, you would have looked back on this movie and been like, this is like a stone cold classic. If you knew what you had to sit through now, I don't think that she would have been so flippant about it and talking about it being like just engaging your motor skills and stuff.
Well, that's one of the biggest legacies of this movie is everybody kind of missed it.
It was
it was like a draft pick where nobody realized, oh my God, how did Giannis go 13th?
Yeah.
Not that this was
the New York Times was mixed. All the trades were mixed on this movie. Roger Ebert gave it like a soft positive review that he later revised, which we can talk about.
He did. I watched it. It was definitely an enthusiastic thumbs up.
Didn't like it that much, right? He was more like, it's a good haunted house movie.
Real miss
something.
for Siskel.
Yeah,
he just didn't get it. And then Ebert, I don't know about the Ebert. It's our guy Raj, But in 2003, he rewrote his review. Basically, he's like 4 stars.
Oh yeah.
Like I want to start doing that with some of my basketball
Went back
draft
in and
misses.
changed the mock draft.
It's like Dwight Howard. I knew it all along. I knew he should have gone over Emeka Okafor. I don't understand that concept of the retroactive review, but
I think it's hard because everything that he writes is so crystallized now that he's no longer with us, and it feels like he's the first person that a lot of people turn to look at what they wrote. But I think that there's something powerful about rethinking how you feel, revisiting. I mean,
no question. That's what we do in the
rewatch.
rewatchables. I just did with He Got Game.
Yeah,
it's a movie I didn't really like that much for 12 years, and now I really like it. Yeah. I don't know what changed.
And I think part of what the point that Chris just made about if Pauline Kael could go back and look at what came after Alien is also true for something like He Got Game, where it's like we had 25 years of basketball culture to then put He Got Game into context of. Alien is the same thing. It's like there had really never been science fiction executed with this level of intensity and craft before. Like this is really the pinnacle of the form in this very specific mode. At the time, when you've never seen something before, you almost don't know what to make of it. You don't know how to process it. And it requires a little more bravery to be like, this is a classic, or it connected with me emotionally.
Like Take Hunter 1.
That's right. But if you see it in the context of the trilogy, it makes more sense. Now, but I'm joking, but being a kid, probably, if I'm being honest, I might have seen Aliens first, like when I was growing up. And seeing Alien in the context of all the Alien movies makes a lot more sense than it would have if they were like, oh, I got to go see this Alien movie at 3:00 for a screening to write a weekly review or whatever. And you're just like, what the fuck am I watching? I mean, I'm sure you could recognize the craft involved, but you might just be like, that was deplorable. You know what I mean? Like that person just gets chased around and gets like, everybody gets their skulls punctured by a set of jaws coming out of the wall. Like it's crazy.
I told CR, I was like 9 when this movie came out. I didn't see it in the theater. We used to have WHT, which I've mentioned before, which was like an HBO box. That it was a box. They just showed movies. You hooked it up to your TV. And I would turn it on and you had no idea what movie was going to be on. One time I turned it on and Halloween was on. We talked about that during the Halloween thing, but they were in the kitchen making a pumpkin. I was like, oh, that's the scariest thing ever. Get it off. The other time I turned it on, that movie didn't get ruined, but Alien did get ruined because I turned it on and I was watching and they were eating at the table. And then all of a sudden John Hurt is on the table and a fucking alien's coming out of his stomach. And I didn't know if it was the middle of the movie, the end of the movie, what was happening. And I was, and I didn't watch it for another like 3-4 years after that. And I always thought that was the ending. And then when I watched it again before, like a year before Aliens, because Aliens 2 got it's Aliens or it's just Aliens?
Aliens.
Just Aliens.
Is the second
it started getting buzz like,
It's Cameron.
Yeah. About like
coming
9-10 months before. So I
yeah.
remember Alien was on and watching it and being like, oh my God, this movie's amazing.
Yeah.
What did WHT stand for?
It was an East Coast thing.
I never heard
Was
of
it
that.
TBS kind of or like?
It was like HBO.
But you plugged it in.
You plugged it in.
Interesting.
And you would flip it over from what you're.
like you would have to like basically do a different source. Oh, okay.
HBO was like that too. And my dad and I had HBO in the late 70s. It was the same thing. You turned it. They would send like a little guide. So you'd go through the guide and be like, oh,
interesting.
They're playing the China Syndrome tonight. But that was kind of the pre-cable thing. So anyway, the Aliens 2 felt so much bigger for so many different reasons. Sigourney Weaver was a way bigger star when Aliens came out because Ghostbusters had already happened. That's what we should talk about Sigourney in the context of this movie. And this is basically her first movie, even though it's her second. It's the first movie anyone had ever seen. She's amazing in this movie.
Yeah.
Like fucking amazing. Young Charlize, I feel like could have maybe done it.
And she's in Prometheus. I mean, like it was, Ridley Scott cast.
Yeah, I'm just talking like early career.
Yeah.
I need some size. I need to feel like you got to be like 5'9", 5'10" range.
There's not really ever been an actress like her in the history of Hollywood. I mean, was forever known as the only woman that could open an action film. And I guess Charlize has broken that rule at this point.
And Angelina did it too for a little while
there,
before she started.
But for 3 decades, she had that reputation, and she also was a classically trained theater actor.
That's the thing. She was like Meryl Streep in Gina Carano's body almost.
Yeah. And she projects this incredible intelligence that I think helps that character feel like the person that you're most rooting for or most invested in, because she's the one who's like, how are you guys not seeing how stupid all of this is?
But it's like, it's so interesting how they set it up, because obviously I think that normally you would just be like, Tom Skerritt's the star of this movie, right? Because he's the captain. Then they spend a lot of time with Yaphet Kotto and Harry Dean Stanton, both of whom were pretty recognizable faces.
My fucking guy,
and those
Yaphet Kotto.
Yaphet is the man. And then
is this going to upset me?
No.
No, Midnight Run. Mosley,
Agent Mosley. And then there's all the John Hurt stuff, where it's like you think like maybe he's going to be the main focal point of the movie, and it really only emerges after Hurt's character dies that it's actually a movie about Ripley, and maybe not even until the third act.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like kind of this great sort of three-card Monte game that Ridley's playing, where it's like you never really know who you're supposed to be focusing on. And one of the reasons this movie is so rewatchable is there's so many ensemble scenes where you can see almost everybody in the cast is in a scene.
Yeah.
So you're just kind of like, oh yeah, well, I got to see where this person's coming from. Or Veronica Cartwright is kind of having the reaction that I would have if I was doing this was happening. You know, like it has like a real like democratic way of telling the story.
It has a 30-minute Easter egg things you didn't notice YouTube clip.
Yeah.
The rule is if you can get over like 25 minutes in your movie with a YouTube breakdown of things you might not have noticed, like The Shining is like 7 hours.
Yeah.
Eyes Wide Shut is like 7 days. If you watch and you just start on YouTube and then it's 7 days go by. But
the algorithm is real interesting after that 7-day Eyes Wide Shut run.
True. Yeah, there's a lot going on here, but I watched it twice in 6 days. And I told Chris, I hadn't probably watched it in like 10, 11 years, something like that. And I was just so blown away by how good she was. Not nominated, obviously. Nobody's getting nominated from an acting standpoint from a movie like this in 1979. It wasn't happening.
Or until 2022. I mean, they never nominate science fiction films.
So do you remember at all, like, because we've talked about with some of these classics, but especially with the horror movies that we've done, these kind of like the most startling scenes or the scenes that everybody's talking about afterwards, right? Do you remember people talking about the cane scene?
Oh, yeah.
The chest burster scene?
Well, there was like the OG scenes, right? It's the horse in the bed. It was the chainsaw in the shower in Scarface.
There's Reagan's head turning around in Exorcist.
Yeah, the guy from Scanners, even though nobody saw Scanners, but everybody knew that his head blew up in Scanners. But I don't know if anyone actually watched the movie. Shining, Scatman Crothers dying. But this is probably, I would say, way, way up there. What's interesting, though, in the context of what the movie meant to that generation, I had no idea. I was a kid. To me, it just was lumped into all the other movies that I thought were cool, right? It was like Halloween, Escape from New York, this movie, The Thing.
Yeah.
You know, they all kind of felt like they achieved the same level of success and
cool, gritty
impact.
Genre movies that were mainstream.
Yeah, I didn't understand at all, like, we're starting this Ridley Scott run now.
Yeah.
And Sigourney Weaver is about to become one of the most important actresses of the 80s, or actors, either side. Like, none of that stuff. It was just like, whoa, that was cool. And that thing came out of that guy's stomach and it was scary and she got away. But yeah, it launched this amazing career for her. Although Dave is still my favorite Sigourney Weaver movie. I mean, you know.
She's exceptional.
We fixed the budget in 10 minutes in that movie.
She has only a handful of filmmakers that she works with, though. When you look at her career, really, it's a lot of Ivan Reitman, it's a lot of Ridley Scott, it's a lot of James Cameron, you know? And she's made a lot of other different kinds of films over the years, but she has a handful of standbys who she shows up for. And she's just really well suited to these like very intellectual, strong-minded women who you
very
don't want to fuck
self-possessed.
with, you know?
Very
Like she's in control.
Her next movie after this is a movie that I think we all really, I know Sean and I like, I don't know if CR and I have talked about it, but Eyewitness.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which is probably a movie we wouldn't do in the rewatchables because I think it would rank them on the least watch, but it's just basically two really great performances and kind of a cool premise.
Is William Hurt's first movie? First movie, yeah.
But when she's in Ghostbusters, Alien had enough steam at that point that the casting of putting her in Ghostbusters seemed kind of crazy. It's like, wait, what?
Yeah.
The lady from Alien's going to be in Ghostbusters? And then she was good in that. And once she was good in that it was a wrap for her. The Ridley Scott piece, he follows Alien up with Blade Runner 3 years later, which, you know, I had no idea about the dialogue of that movie. I was 12 or 13 at that point,
Right.
but that it belatedly became this argued about. It was a classic. Why didn't it do better? We've
And it's
never
like
done
you
it
can
on the
argue that his
Rewatchables.
vision of the future is pretty formative for like me and Sean's generation, because by the time we start watching movies, those Alien and Blade Runner are considered like basically the two pinnacles of sci-fi outside, you know.
And it like did see the future. If you watch Blade Runner now with telephone, video telephone calls and images on screens everywhere, and the kind of like darkness of modern contemporary life,
Climate
like
disaster,
like it's just a movie that sees the future. In addition to being a kind of beautiful.
I think Airplane
interesting-
2 predicted the FaceTiming.
Is that an Airplane 2?
Yeah.
Wow.
They're talking to each other. And
You're
things.
saying Ridley jacked from
I think he fucking
Zucker,
stole from
Abrams,
Airplane
Zucker?
2.
Yeah.
I do.
wow.
Yeah, Blade Runner, I had no idea that all that dialogue was going, because just knowing barely anything, it just seemed like the movie failed because it didn't make a lot of money. And then people talked about how it was this good movie that failed. It's like Heaven's Gate.
It had a couple of things too going for it that I think led to this like a lot of contemporary discourse about like, was Harrison Ford's character actually a replicant or not? That was like, it was kind of the pre-Reddit debating like what was the intent of the movie, and then there were like all of these different cuts of the movie that revealed different
Is there
truths
a
about the
voiceover
movie.
supposed to be there or not?
Alien has a similar thing where there's a director's cut of Alien that is now like superseded the original cut, and there's like some things that get taken out and some things that get added. Scott is like one of those directors who's constantly kind of tinkering with what he does.
Yeah.
CR, I watched the original on the Delta.
Uh-huh.
Again, not a plug for Delta. It was just the airline I was on. Then I watched
That sounded suspiciously like a plug for Delta.
Well, because they had the original on an airplane, and then I watched the director's cut on Amazon this week. The director's cut is unquestionably better. It moves faster.
Yes.
The first 40 minutes does not seem nearly as slow, and it just was like a crisper movie. And he talks about it in some of the research. He's like, I made the movie better. Like, why can't I do that? We had a limited budget. There were choices I had to make that we didn't have the money to
Well, I
make
think
the right
the original,
choice.
like when he was done, it was running at about 3 hours. He gets it down to a little under 2, right? And then the stuff that he did in the director's cut, typically, like when he did his director's cut of Kingdom of Heaven, which is a movie that when it was theatrically out didn't get appreciated very much, but since then has kind of had like this cult following, and its director's cut, that's like 4 hours long. That's like an epic movie. So you usually associate director's cuts with adding, but he actually trimmed a lot in the Alien director's cut and added a couple of really crucial moments.
He said it was a lot of like pacing and just things being slower than they should have been.
I forget, is Lambert hitting Ripley in the director's cut? And then the dude, and then you see Dallas again, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
All this stuff's on YouTube too, which we'll talk about later. So
So when did you see it though?
The director's cut or
just
film
the
itself?
movie? Because Bill said he saw it on WHT.
I kind of can't remember. I think it was actually one of the few movies that my parents were trying to keep from me a little bit because of the chest bursting scene. So I think I was aware of it, but if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was like after Aliens. And I was like, is there another Alien movie? And they're like, yeah, but it's even scarier than that one.
The chess scene did become a thing that I knew about as a kid.
I mean, is that like an SNL sketch or something? Like that seems like it would have been,
It's in Spaceballs. It's recreated in Spaceballs.
Because there were stories about people passing on the theater. Same thing as Exorcist, which all that did was make, teenagers and people like that be like, what? Oh, I got to see that movie. Our guy, John Hurt, I'm going to call him an A-lister. He pumps out Alien, Elephant Man, and Heaven's Gate in like 18 months here. And Elephant Man was a big movie. Like, I unfortunately saw Elephant Man in the theater with the Simmons family. I still blame my dad.
Unfortunately?
Yeah, I was 10. I didn't want to see the fucking Elephant Man. It's not a lot of laughs.
It's tough, yeah. You didn't feel empathy for John Merrick's pain?
I'm not an animal. Wasn't what I was looking for at age 10. I was like, what about that Caddyshack movie we saw? But he had a nice little run there.
Yeah.
And he's really good in this movie.
An incredible actor. And were it not for another actor finding out he was diabetic, John Hurt would not have been in this movie.
Yeah, we'd gone to South Africa to make Zulu Dawn and then didn't make Zulu Dawn and then came back. It's like, it's hard to imagine the chestburster scene with a different actor.
My guy, Yaphet Kotto, he was the villain in a Bond movie, Live and Let Die.
Kananga.
He makes 4 of these movies: Alien, Midnight Run, Brubaker, and The Running Man. Like, that's it.
Brubaker rewatchables when...
I fucking love Brubaker. Brubaker invented the slow clap, as you guys know.
One of the all-time greats. He also did Blue Collar, one of my favorite movies of all time, the Paul Schrader movie. And he's
yeah, you're right.
And he's also I mean, to me, he's always the lieutenant from Homicide.
Yeah.
Well, so I have that as the last act for him because he made a bunch of good movies, but was also an era where there weren't a ton of black guy parts. So he is, as he's in these awesome movies, he's on Fantasy Island, he's on the A-Team, he's on Hill Street Blues, he's on Murder, She Wrote, just doing one-offs.
He was a staple.
And grabbing different things, and then finally a Homicide happens, and then that's how everybody knows him.
Yeah.
I know him as Midnight Run Guy and Alien Guy.
Yeah.
I mean, really Midnight Run Guy. I fucking love Mosley.
Mosley. This is an
Like,
iconic character.
Why are you guys whispering like you're about
I
to
ju-
fuck?
I just
You're being
love
really
Mosley.
weird.
Yay!
So this movie was written by Dan O'Bannon, based on a story by O'Bannon and Ronald Shusett. And they shopped it for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody bit. And then Star Wars made $700 gazillion. And people were like, let's make that Alien movie. And then we were off. It won an Academy Award, which I don't think I knew or I'd forgotten.
Visual
for
effects.
Best Visual Effects. Not bad. How about this? $11 million budget made $184 million.
And that's one of those final box office numbers that you might as well multiply by like
Yeah.
12.
It was the
when you
fifth
think
biggest
about how
movie in
many times people have seen
1979
it.
when we had no internet, no video games yet. So
Yeah.
that's like a real giant number.
We should talk about why that happened too. That's an interesting thing to me
Let's do it.
because, it's another one of those movies where there were lines around the block, but the movie had mediocre reviews and no stars. It has one of the greatest trailers in the history of trailers.
Yeah, that's in Which Age the Best. I had that.
Yeah. I mean, it is like, you couldn't watch that trailer and not want to see that movie
That
if you like
trailer-
movies like that.
For one thing, it is just like that's what the Prometheus trailer is. Like he redoes that trailer like in 2015 or whenever that movie comes out. But that trailer is literally rhythmically every trailer now. Like any thriller, any horror movie, any like
A shot of somebody with their eyes wide.
Yeah.
and
Quick cutting.
like
Yeah.
like some sound effect that's like
Yeah.
it's like every fucking trailer is that.
The Shining, as you know, is my favorite trailer ever.
The elevator.
It cribs Alien a tiny bit, and the soundtracks of the movies.
The electronic.
There's one
yeah.
part where it's like, "Whoa, is that did The Shining steal from
Yeah,
that?"
the synthy, the Jerry Goldsmith score. Yeah.
Ebert on the TV show said it was one of the scariest old-fashioned space operas I can remember, as he praised the movie. But then in his 4-star review in 2003, he said Alien has been called the most influential of modern action pictures, and so it is, although Halloween also belongs on the list. Unfortunately, the films it influenced studied its thrills, but not its thinking. What we said earlier. We've now descended into a bog of gotcha movies in which various horrible beings spring on a series of victims, usually teenagers. Not inaccurate.
Yeah, it's way more patient. Do you think space opera is an accurate
No, it's not.
description
That
of the
sounds
movie?
like kind of Star Wars fatigue
Yeah.
at the time. And it's just like we're gonna have to sit through a lot of these, aren't we?
It has a couple of kind of beautiful exterior shots of space and ships moving through space, and then there's the big space jockey sequence that is kind of like a space opera moment. But aside from that, it's like it's a chamber drama. It's like an Agatha
Yeah.
Christie movie.
You wouldn't know that they're in space for 75% of
Yeah.
the movie. Yeah. It's like they're just trapped.
Half of me wants to throw to a break, and half of me wants Chris to just jump on the table on his back and go, "Ah!" and start writhing around. Just start spinning up. All right, most rewatchable scene. I tried to limit this. I like watching them wake up.
Yeah.
I just think it's fucking cool. I don't know what it is about it, but it just takes your brain to some places. And you're just like, how long were they asleep? What's going on? How many people are in there?
Yeah.
Why? How do you wake up? It leaves you with more questions than answers.
The music that plays over
Yeah.
that sequence too
also-
draws you in.
So perfect that when they wake up, my first rewatchable is the first meal together.
I have that too.
Is they're not like, well, we've been asleep for 10 months and soon we'll be back on Earth where I live in Houston and I can't wait to see my wife. It's like, dude, I want more money. Pass the cornbread.
Three
I feel
people
like
have coffee
shit.
pots.
Yeah. It's just like everybody is just groggy and they're just having normal conversations.
I don't know how much coffee I would need if I was asleep for 8 months, but I think I would just have my mouth open as they poured the pot down my throat.
It's been said too that like Robert Altman movies are a big influence on this movie, and that the characters are kind of constantly talking over each other. It feels like you're in a room with guys who just woke up.
It's a really good scene. Even the way they set the table where you can kind of see everybody and they're bouncing around.
Also, when you go back to this scene after knowing what happens, when you watch the
Ash.
interactions, especially with Ash, but even with even with Parker and Ripley, who are like antagonists from a lot of the movie, but then wind up being kind of like on the same team towards the end of it. It's so awesome to see him like lay the groundwork for like the eventual sort of the decline.
We see Ash going for the milk.
Oh yeah.
It's like, Next one I have.
Wait, let's go back. What is it? What do you think that means?
Well, I don't think he drinks milk because it replenishes his milk-like blood. Is that what you're implying? Or
He's not really eating.
yes.
He does. They show him going for food a couple of times, though, going for that weird
But I
cereal
think it's like when my
concoction.
mom pretends she's eating, but she's really just having another glass of red wine. It's same. It's very similar to that.
Does she listen to this?
No.
She's not going to listen to Alien?
No.
Okay.
You should send it to her and say that we did Sideways again, and just and make her listen.
I have the next one.
She'll be
I
like,
have,
your dad took you to Elephant Man? Jesus Christ.
yeah, he'll remember. The next one I have is I just wrote down trying to find out where the alien went. Jumps on Kane's face. I don't know if you remember that part when the alien comes flying out and attaches himself.
Do I
to
remember
the
it?
mask.
Egg?
I don't know if you remember that part.
Yeah, it's memorable.
I think the getting the SOS, deciding to land on the planetoid.
I'm out. I'm like, we're fucking going.
Yeah, and that that entire set piece, seeing the space jockey and then arriving at the eggs, is in a
And that's
very
where the
short list of the
HR
greatest sequences in movie history.
HR Geiger stuff starts, and you're just like some dude smoked opium and made this. This is amazing.
I actually am more amazed knowing what else was released in the late 70s, how realistic the spaceship and some of the space stuff looks. It actually doesn't make sense.
It's so brilliant. Like,
We could talk about this for an hour and a half. There's also like several documentaries made about Alien, but there's one that's called Behind the Giant.
mhm.
That's like 3 hours long. It's on YouTube. What he did to create this sort of movie and this world where he's like builds the face of a planet in a warehouse in England and has sand shipped in
For $220,000?
Yeah, and he's like going and buying scrap metal at like old World War II bomber graveyards so that he can build spaceships. And
he's making his vagina alien faces out of like shredded condoms.
He was like, Ridley Scott was like, I want to make this ship feel big, so we're going to build a 58-foot landing gear and then have children standing next to it so that it can seem even bigger. And it's like, fuck does that? Who the fuck even thinks of that? That's
pretty
Kubrick
good.
and him.
I predict big things for him.
Yeah.
Oh no, they already happened.
He's an industrial artist, right? He got to start doing commercials and wants to do everything on a grand scale.
Little Finchery.
So, very mechanical in the same way.
Chris, what's your move if you're in a dark spaceship with a bunch of alien pod eggs
Mhm.
and there's some movement in one of them? Is it just watching it open up and peering over it?
But isn't that the best thing is like the different reactions people have to like whether they should open the door, whether they should freeze it, whether like Ash should try to get it off, what like everything is like a little bit of a personality test. And I think Kane was an explorer and Kane was like a curious person. And he's like, we've just come in contact with organic life on another planet. I'm not going to run away from it. We know that because we know what happens.
Yeah.
But there's something really kind of fascinating.
I like how you ducked the question. What would you do?
CR's running. He's running in the other direction.
It would be like Deshaun Jackson at the Miracle of the Meadowlands. He's got a block! Fucking out of there.
CR's pulling his Achilles like James Harden 3 weeks ago.
Come on, this is going up Monday. Don't jinx us.
Yeah, it's like the Eddie Murphy, the routine he did about the Amityville Horror House. If black people were at Amityville Horror and they get in, oh, this seems like a great place. Get out. All right, too bad we can't stay. But yeah, you're right. Everybody would react to that situation differently. Yeah. I would be like, there's movement. So long, everybody. Let's get the fuck out of here because we're surrounded by eggs and one of them's moving. We're out.
I mean, you couldn't pay me enough money to spend 3 years on a spaceship bringing ore back to Earth. Like, forget about going down on
what
the
if there was
planetoid.
DirecTV?
Yeah, what if you had the entire Criterion?
What if there's the extra
Criterion closet?
If it had the extra innings
on the Nostromo.
Extra innings package and all the Criterion movies.
Can you imagine your letterbox? What kind of numbers you'd be putting up?
Yeah, but I wouldn't have you guys. You know, I wouldn't be able to do this show with you.
Sean.
Brett and Lambert.
If we woke up from that 8 month sleep, and there was one pot of coffee I think I would actually fight everybody else.
Yeah, you'd
hit
slash throats. You drop face huggers
There'd
on
only
everybody.
be one person left. The dinner scene.
Yeah.
The answer for most rewatchable scene of the movie. I have a lot of questions about this scene that I'll be sharing in when we pick some nits later. But this scene's incredible. And there's 2 times in this movie. One is when he peers over the alien and the thing jumps on his face. And we just immediately cut to the next scene. Then this one, it's really tight. Like you don't think, I think in the wrong hands, they're just milking this for 3 minutes. And the guy's on the tail like, ah. And this one, the thing comes out, everyone's horrified.
Yep.
Because in real life, they had no idea they were going to all be splattered by blood. And then it just kind of moves on. Also, within a minute, he's getting just sent out in his fucking space funeral. And it's done.
Yeah. So you wanted a little more pomp and circumstance around
No,
Kane's death?
I like how they did it.
Yeah.
It's like kind of scarier and more effective.
Yeah.
That
Whole movie is like cold and efficient and just propulsive going forward. What do we do next? We got to get this body out. We got to find this alien. Now we're on the mission to find the monster in the house.
good usage rate. Next one, Harry Dean bites the dust. Your guy.
I mean, when are we
HDS.
going to start talking about this cat? That's my question.
I mean, we can do it now.
it's
It's just an unbelievable run of weird movies and weird choices and weird casting.
yeah,
He's also in like Pretty in Pink.
right.
He's
No,
in-
I was talking about just the idea of like going around looking for this cat in this situation.
Oh, do you want to do this now?
We can do it. We can save it. But that's
Let's save it, 'cause it's
bothers
part of
me
my
that
hottest
that's how
take.
Brett goes out.
Yeah.
And I like cats.
You know, you should. I feel like Harry Dean is one of your spirit animals.
Well, I mean,
speaking of
his
cats.
inclusion in this movie is just him telling Ridley Scott, I don't like monster movies and I don't like space movies, and Ridley Scott's like, you're perfect then, and he is. Can you imagine this movie without those two guys being like, oh, we don't get paid enough money. Oh, like we deserve our own share. We got to fix this. We got to fix that. So awesome when they're like, how long is it going to take? And he's just like, 18 hours. He's like, yeah, 25 hours.
Yaphet Kotto started the player empowerment era in this
That's
movie.
right. Yeah.
He really tried to
Yeah.
lay into it quickly.
More money, less work.
Harry Dean Stanton, avenge me! Red Dawn, you seen that one, Craig?
No.
God damn it. Just can't get the under 30s to care about the Cold War.
They will. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they will when the Cold War circles back.
when Putin rises? Yeah.
Next one I have
Putin
is
shows up in Colorado. You maybe wish you'd seen what Red Dawn.
That's
you
a
know
good
what I'm
point.
saying?
Yeah. Take some notes when you're watching it too.
Dallas bites it. I have Ash versus Ripley, which is a fucking insane scene.
Mhm.
That might be my second favorite scene in the movie because Ash was always a little off, and you're like, is this guy a bad actor? What's going on with Ash? It's like, oh, he's actually a replicant.
Yeah.
And he bleeds milk.
They have a series of interactions because she's, we slowly see her not trusting him, them letting them back into the pod bay.
Yeah.
After
Him never
they are
having
outside.
answers.
He doesn't really respond to her questions. She's kind of challenging his authority. He's challenging hers, then culminating in like one of the great reveals of the movie that apparently was not in the movie originally.
Yeah, and then also like very perverted. Like a really perverted scene, not only because of like milk spraying everywhere, but him trying to shove the
Jamming a
magazine
long
down
object
yeah,
down her mouth.
Ridley's the best.
Should we talk about all the sexual perversion of the film? I mean, it's like it is the defining trait, really.
We could do it now.
I mean, every critical action sequence is basically a commentary on rape, and
Yeah.
the way that the alien attacks is rape. The chest bursting is the vision of male rape. Like it's all the whole movie is kind of all the
And on the
H.R.
flip
Giger,
side,
like
it's
all
like-
of his art is
yeah.
obsessed with constantly showing penetration and being attacked by sex, and the idea that
Phallic head kind of.
the alien's head is a giant dick. Like it's all
And then the entire like
Well,
nest of the alien
faces a
is
vagina?
like a giant tropical womb, And I mean, Veronica Cartwright talked about this. It's just like it was like obvious, and it definitely had an impact on.
Well,
like,
they dialed it back in the last scene when Sigourney Weaver is wearing boys 6 and under underpants.
that was one of Craig's lingering questions. What's going on with her underwear?
Don't understand that at all.
I mean, I don't know what size that was. I'm stepping
But
out an
that's also
unanswerable
super
question.
purposeful to be like leering at her when she's stripped down to her clothes, the way that the alien is leering at her, and she's like, all of a sudden, this incredibly powerful woman is also like exposed and weirdly like an object of desire in these final moments. Like all
and a
that stuff is so
vessel
purposeful.
for life. Like that alien probably looks at like all these people as like this is like I'm gonna gestate, you know?
Procreate,
Yeah.
exactly.
Ash versus Ripley, there's like 5 favorite moments. One is which we mentioned, when he's just trying to basically choke her to death for some reason with this long thing.
So weird.
When
I think he's rolled up a magazine and he's shoving it down her throat.
When Yaphet Kotto comes in the first time, it's like, oh, he's going to stop it. And then Ash just like puts his hand on his chest.
It's like a pressure point.
Ah!
Yeah, the pressure.
Yeah, it was shades of Mola Ram from Temple of Doom. You
Right.
know?
I love that. And then it's just the most unexpected, oh, that guy's head just came off moment. And weird shit's coming out. And then, oh, but he's not actually dead because we're going to talk to him as his head lies next to his robot carcass. That scene is fucking insane.
So you don't know this, but Sean and I have been talking with Daniel Ek a lot about like a succession plan. But we want you to know, no matter what happens to you in the coming years, we're going to save your head so that we can plug it in and you can just be like covered in milk and being like Bill who says no.
Bill.
The Picasso of the train machine.
Bill, where's Train Young going?
Yeah. What promise not to aggregate it, Bill.
Next one I have is Ripley looks for Jones. Alien kills the other
Who's
two.
Who's gonna buy the Hornets, Bill?
Jeff Bezos.
You have my sympathies.
The Ripley looking for Jones the cat and the alien killing the other two. And then Ripley escapes and ends up she didn't escape. The alien's still there, and she's got to figure this thing out pretty fast. Most rewatchable chest burst?
Mm-hmm.
Has to be.
I have Ash, honorable mention. Ash going heel.
And it's getting his head knocked off?
The whole thing. Him trying to kill Ripley. Just a great heel turn by him. He needed like entrance music after that.
I think an underrated one is Dallas's death.
Yeah.
The pursuit through the tunnels and the sort of like the tracker and getting confused about where the alien is, which I think James Cameron, that seems to be the most inspiring scene to James Cameron, because then Aliens is just like 90 minutes of that.
Yeah.
But
I think the Dallas scene is actually my favorite scene in the movie, but it is not the like most rewatchable scene for probably.
What's aged the best? Anytime in any movie where astronauts have to go on some planet or territory they found in their spacesuits and they hop out of the thing and start walking around, I'm always in. And I'm not even really a sci-fi guy. I just really enjoy it. The opening graphic, when they tell us, like in the beginning, commercial towing vehicle, the Nostromo, crew 7, cargo, refinery processing 20 billion tons of mineral ore, course, returning to Earth. We're good. Thanks. That took 3 seconds. Thank you. Thank you for not throwing in the 5-minute scene and explaining that to me.
Yeah.
It's a lean and mean movie. Like Chris was saying, you know, there's no like, I'm from this town or any of that stuff. It's no pomp and circumstance. It's just, whoops, they brought an alien onto a ship. It's going to kill them. That's the whole movie.
70s spaceship designs and special effects. It feels 70s, but it still feels modern.
Well, it's like
retro
futurism.
Yeah.
Right. And it's all
rollerballs like this too.
Yeah. It's all tactile. It's all like the buttons push. And it's interesting because I think that they did know. I mean, these are all incredibly perceptive people. We're like, yeah, like it's all going to go to flat screen, kind of like they knew where technology was sort of headed, but they wanted it to feel like, rather than being cutting edge technology, this was like a trucker. This is what like a trucker would have if they were in space. Like it's not the newest shit. It's kind of used. It's kind of beat up. It's a little dirty.
I like this 70s version of what the future was going to look like the most. Whereas basically like people kind of wore costumes as clothes and you had FaceTime.
And you could smoke indoors.
You could smoke anywhere you wanted. It'd be funny though if one of these movies were like Dallas,
waiting for that.
Dallas, what are you doing?
Smoking. Yeah.
No, Dallas is like, I'm just watching videos of guys get kicked in the balls. And that was like the future. I'm on a car crash Instagram. It's amazing.
Well, one thing that distinguishes this though is most of those 70s science fiction movies, Star Wars is actually more like Alien than a lot of these other movies, but like Logan's Run or the movies like that, it's a lot of bright colors. Everyone has perfect posture. If you look at the Star Trek movies, the early Star Trek movies, there's something kind of antiseptic about everything.
Yeah.
And Alien is the exact opposite of that. It's extremely dirty.
Oh,
and
God.
used.
Those people, for the entirety of the movie, the entire cast looks like they just woke up from being asleep for 10 months.
Yeah.
The haircuts that, like, Veronica Cartwright especially is like, that's somebody who basically shaved their head to go on this mission, and now it's like growing out kind of funky, you know what I mean, as she's been asleep for 10 months. John Hurt probably still looks like, you know what I mean, like last time I saw him, he looked the same way, where it's like giant bags
like he'd been
under
drinking
his
with
eyes.
Richard Harris all night. Yeah,
exactly.
The breath must be just unbelievable on that spaceship.
That's where the smokes come in. Just
You got cigs, coffee, and a 10-month morning breath.
yeah.
It's amazing we couldn't see it. Young Sigourney, I have what's age the best. Sending a dead body out to space in an air coffin pod. Enjoyed that.
That's how you want to go?
Just in general.
No, we're gonna have his detached head.
Yeah, I'm gonna be Ash. One more Super Bowl for Pat Mahomes.
FanDuel, supercharge this, please.
Plus 220.
Belichick would never have done this.
Can't believe we traded down. What's age the best? My guy Walter Hill. Just seen him in the credits of anything.
Yeah.
What a fucking run. The legend.
He, in some ways, it kind of feels like he is the critical figure in kind of saving the direction of the movie. Because if it's the O'Bannon and Shusett movie, it's hard sci-fi, and that's it. You know, and it's
And they, you know, it might have been a Roger Corman movie, but it might have been. I mean, I think when we do these pods, we often just kind of like throw all the authorship on the director, and sometimes that's really fun, and it's also probably right. But this is an example where, like, I think if you take out Geiger, or you take out Hill, or even if you take out O'Bannon, or if you take out Sigourney, or you take out any number of people, and obviously Ridley is the most important, but it's just not the same movie.
Yeah.
And if it's not the same movie, you kind of wonder what happens for the next 40 years after it.
Ridley Scott said, "You don't show the monster too many times because you'll get used to him and you'll never want to get used to him ever. That's always been my thesis. The best screening room in the world is the space between your ears, which is your brain." Thanks, Ridley. So it's learning to tap into the human brain to show just so much. Let the brain do a lot of the work. That's where you start to tap into people's anxieties. That whole quote's what's age the best. They should fucking mail that to every young horror and action movie director under 30.
Yeah.
Like, just read this once a day.
he breaks his own rules, though. In some of his other movies, he doesn't really abide by that. You know, like he's made other Alien movies now, and I really like Alien
Prometheus.
No, I love Prometheus. Prometheus, I think, is like borderline masterpiece. But I really like Alien Covenant.
Yeah,
but it is like a rip-roaring, aggressively violent, digitally shot CGI fest. Like it's the opposite of everything that he's preaching there. It's like the chestburster scene in Covenant is ridiculous. It's like it's shot in the dark, but it's done with CGI. He breaks all of his own rules because he's also like he's like a technocrat fetishist. Like he wants to also be at the forefront of technology while also thinking about the artistic choices of a director.
Like this was just a time in movie history where like you could take $8.5 million and make a movie like this, but you had to hide some stuff. And I don't think they were. I mean, I think when Lambert and Parker get killed, it's kind of awkward because you can't really tell where they are. Or I think it's supposed to be like the alien is standing in front, or Lambert's in front of the alien, and that's why Parker can't light it on fire or something. But it's like very awkward because I think he was like, I don't have it. Like it's herky jerky because I can't show this thing because it'll take people out of the movie if they see that it's not, it's not up to par with everything else.
If we were on First Take when Sean was doing his Ridley Scott thing, the graphic underneath would have said, "Ridley Scott, hypocrite."
Are we sure he's good?
This is my favorite. What's age the best? I'll save it. What do you have for what's age the best? And I'll do mine last.
Me?
Yeah, we did. What other ones?
Yeah, there's a bunch of. I mean, like it's kind of a pretty funny movie in the first hour, and I love that Kane's first line is "I feel dead." A lot of the biblical allusion stuff that really kind of resonates once you've seen Prometheus, but like Ash calling the alien Kane's son and things like that are really, the deep mythology of it, the idea of like creationism and where do we come from and where do they come from and why are they there is really cool. And then Ash as just like this iteration on Hal from 2001 and this idea that there's like this corporate presence in the form of this robot or computer or whatever.
That's what I was going to say. There's the Weyland-Yutani insinuation, but not explanation, that there is a corporation that, Cameron, goes further with this, and all the other future films take it much further with kind of talking about the corporate influence on science, basically, which is like such a resonant thing we've been living through for the last 10 years. And also, there's some like something very unusual happened with this movie and its understanding in the public eye, which is a lot of the phrases and words that they used on the set were adopted by the public. Like we don't ever hear the words face hugger or chest burster
in the
movie, but those words were used on the set when they were making the movie. And now when we talk about the movie, we use those words. And I don't know how that happened. That's actually quite fascinating that I guess the filmmakers just saying it enough in all of these documentaries and interviews, everyone just agreed that this is the terminology we should use, which is super interesting.
I'll tell you one thing, face hugger and chest burster,
Mm-hmm.
two of the worst porn searches ever. Just don't search for those.
Yeah. Is that your Pornhub tab? Face hugger?
Chris is like, one more time, chest burster. All right, my What's Age the Best favorite one. Veronica Cartwright's "What is happening?" face, which she also unleashes in one of my favorites, Invasion of the Body Snatchers. A movie that I think I might be the only one who really loves. There might be like three others.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
That movie is amazing. That's also like Adam Naiman's like favorite movie of all time.
Oh,
the
really?
Phil Kaufman Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Yeah.
Could we do that for Rewatchables then?
I
And
think
we
without
wouldn't
question.
get heckled?
No, I think people love that movie. They think it's great. There have been like 9 Invasion of the Body Snatchers movies at this point, which is kind of a problem, but I think that's the best one.
She spends half of that movie with the same face she has when the alien comes out of the ship.
Yeah.
And at the end, Donald Sutherland, she's like, hey, and he's like, does that thing. That'll be social media now.
The best thing I've ever created in my entire life is a letterbox list. I'm going to tell you about it right now. It's called Veronica Cartwright Freaks Out in an O Tourist Nightmare. There are 5 entries. Alien, The Birds. She's 8 years old in The Birds, freaking out.
Oh, wow.
Invasion of the Body Snatchers. The Witches of Eastwick, in which she is married to someone that has a freak out. And Inserts, which is a crazy 70s movie. But was the number 1 draft pick for Do You Need to Scream at the Top of Your Lungs and Be Horrified in a Sequence at that time?
Inserts was Margot Kidder? No.
No, it's Jessica Harper and Richard Dreyfuss.
She's also in a great Law & Order SVU where she's like Terry Schiavo's mom.
Is that true?
Yeah. Yeah.
Also an O Tourist Nightmare.
Yeah.
Last What's Age the Best is just this movie gave birth to Aliens 2 and a whole giant franchise, but especially Aliens 2. It's an incredibly important 80s movie.
Yeah.
I feel like it was one of the first in the conversation of, is the sequel better than the original?
Mm-hmm.
It started a lot of film nerd stuff that I was starting to become aware of.
That's your, you prefer Aliens to Alien?
I go back and forth. Like, I think that the Aliens is like a more fun watch and like has more like it's got Paxton and it's got Michael Biehn and it's got Vasquez and stuff.
It feels more, it feels like really severe 80s.
But I think it's a little too
elements.
long sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And
Me too.
I think the Alien is far scarier.
Mm-hmm.
The Kid Cudi Pursuit of Happiness Award for Best Needle Drop. I don't really have one.
I mean, the Jerry Goldsmith music is really good.
Yeah,
but
I guess it's hard to pick one.
I was disappointed that they didn't. I guess Skerritt's listened to some classical on the deck.
Sigourney singing
Lucky Star.
Lucky Star at the end.
Oh, that's good. Okay. Big Kahuna Burger Award, Best Use of Food and Drink. I guess it has to be the dinner scene, right? Or the breakfast scene?
What do you think? This is going to be an unanswerable question. What's Kane's last bite? Is that coleslaw?
Oh, it looks so gross.
Yeah. Like, what's he? I thought maybe it was lo mein.
Looks
but
like, mung beans. Looks bad.
Looks gross.
Yeah.
Don't know the answer.
You guys want to get lunch?
The Den of Thieves Benihana Award for Scene Stealing Location. I got to say, for me, it's the sleeping pod room.
The all
That
white.
room is amazing. The all white just feels very 70s version of what Future is, and you don't know what's going on. It's fucking weird. I like it.
I think it's the refinery where Brett gets it, where the chains and like the water dripping down. It's like, what the fuck is this place? You
Why
know?
is that on the ship? Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the space jockey big set piece that
Oh, yeah.
they were calling the Cecil B. DeMille shot when they were making the movie.
Is that what you want to get your ADU looking like at this certain
It
point?
kind of does.
Yeah.
You know, I have one of those pods where I strap in and I put my mask on, and then that's how I watch all my films.
CR, what's the Great Shock Order Award for you? I'm just giving this to you.
You know,
I'm clearing out, setting a pick.
It could be 1,000 different little bits from like when they're walking across the face of the planet, and there's so many great handheld moments. And I love the tracking shots and when they're all eating together. But I have the slow motion them waking up and the dissolve to Kane's face You know,
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
it's just like a
At
really,
the very beginning.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just like a
I
really
really like that
what
scene.
is happening, man. This is like, and it does feel like you're watching a nightmare start.
Mhm.
You know,
The Butch's Girlfriend Award for Weak Link of the Film, I think, is what you mentioned before about they didn't have quite enough money to pull off some of the action stuff in the best possible way.
and they were on enough of a time crunch that I think like if they did something and it was like, well, that's pretty good. If we went and reshot it, it would be like the Ash scene. Apparently, is like a really good example of like them being like, that was pretty good. The latex didn't look great, but like we can't reshoot that, so let's
Right.
like keep it moving.
Like there's 3 characters left, and 2 of them die basically in the same scene, and it's not that good of a scene.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That should just have been like an
Although
incredible
I do
scene.
fucking love the shot when the shadow comes up on Lambert.
Yeah, no, yeah. All right. What's age the worst? I mean, smoking inside a spaceship. Sierra and I love smoking indoors in movies, but the spaceship might be even where I would draw the line.
I mean, they might have really good ventilation. That you never know. It could be like a casino in Vegas.
Like 4 of them are lighting it up. Ash
All
isn't
of
because
them
he's
smoke.
a replicant robot.
Yeah, that's right.
He's like,
Does Ash
yeah, I had
No,
a,
but it'd be cool if everybody was like, Ash, you want a merit? And he's just like,
he's like, nah, I had a spot on my lung 10 years ago.
Pacemaker.
Yeah,
Doc
can't
says I
do
need
it.
to cut down on the coffee.
When will you guys start smoking during the Rewatchables recordings?
Oh,
What do you think is a movie that does like we should smoke during?
maybe the reheat.
Mhm.
The 400th episode.
Okay.
That'll be the smoking. We'll try to smoke as we do it.
You guys and Joe Camel will be hosting that episode.
What's age the worst? This could be a nitpick too, but I'm putting it here. The Kane starts choking. He's just been in a coma because an alien jumped on his face. And then he comes out of it. And in a cut, they're like, whoa, that was scary. He's like, yeah. You guys want to have some dinner? Eats dinner for 5 minutes and starts like really choking. None of them are that alarmed.
That's not true.
They're like, oh, he's choking. None of them are like,
Well,
why is he choking?
it's distorted because Yaphet Kotto is trying to make a joke through he's like, the food doesn't taste that bad.
right. That's what I mean.
There's a much deeper knit to pick about that though, which is like,
I had it later, but we can do it now. Why the fuck are they in the
why
same
are
room
they
with him?
spending time with him?
Yeah, put that guy in his own area.
Yes, he should be quarantined.
Let's give this a couple more
the
weeks,
devil's
no
advocate
offense.
would be this is the first time this has ever happened in human history. Is the interaction with like an alien
Cool.
life form, and they're like, well, like I'm
Cool.
glad
We're
you're feeling
gonna-
better.
we're gonna
look
wait
like
this
a
out.
Care Bear. It was like a stingray spider stuck to
I
his
hear
face.
you. And you know what? Look who doesn't move at all when he starts choking. Ash.
right.
Mm.
Ash is like sitting there, and then he's like, this is serious, and he gets up, but he also stops Parker from going after the alien when it bursts out of his chest. Like every step of the way, Ash basically fucks them up when it comes to like freezing it, getting rid of it,
Sure.
keeping Kane in quarantine, killing it when it comes out of his chest. He
It's
doesn't
like, how's Sean doing since the alien jumped on his face and he went in coma for 3 days? He's good.
No, we're gonna get some
Is
lunch.
he ready to
Yeah.
do Rewatchables? We're gonna do it on Zoom.
Yeah.
Sean's gonna stay in the glass chamber for 2 more weeks to make sure there's not an alien inside him.
How many COVID pods did you record?
Oh, a lot.
How many?
Probably like
God.
6 or 7.
You recorded some COVID pods.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I did too.
What does that have to do with?
They were all done in quarantine. We were
Fair.
never face to face.
That sucked. I never really enjoyed that era of the Rewatchables that much.
I
This
just-
is way
I
more
just-
fun in person.
I just meant when we were actually sick.
Oh yeah. I just would leave him in his own room. I'm sorry. Sorry, Kane.
Yeah.
It's been fun hanging. I've really enjoyed our time on the ship, but we've all decided you're gonna be in that room over there and we're gonna lock the fucking door.
I completely agree. I wouldn't want to spend. And also, was Kane was he such a great hang? They needed to rebond with him.
I think Lambert really liked Kane. That's a later.
Kane did seem like
later
a
conversation.
He seemed like a glue guy.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I felt a little
everybody
glue
got
guy-ish.
Kane.
Felt a little Alex Caruso-y. Didn't care about his own stats.
Fires up a Dunhill, and he's just
Yeah.
like, who wants to get some coleslaw? You know?
The what stage the worst? That I just don't like that this is online. With the deleted scene where Ripley at the end, she's running around and Dallas and Brett are in an alien cocoon. And so then she torches the entire cocoon.
You hate that for Viper
I just wish that they should destroy that on the YouTube. I don't like seeing scenes that actually make me rethink what the movie was. I like deleted scenes, but not like Boogie Nights we talked about. Like those deleted scenes were really additive and fun, and we wish some of them. That one is like, all right, they're in a fucking alien cocoon. Now I'm in a completely different movie. Like, what's going on with the alien cocoon? So then what would have happened? And like, it takes me down a rabbit hole.
So to piggyback off of that, my What's Age the Worst is Ridley Scott's original planned ending, which is the alien rips Ripley's head off.
Yeah.
And then presses some buttons to start the ship to go back to Earth or whatever, to go get picked up by another ship. And I was like, what?
It's just like a very conventional kind of sci-fi, dun, dun, dun. What's great about this franchise is that it has that satisfying conclusion with Ripley, but then it still manages to convince you that the story has to go on in the sequels. Like it still gives you the satisfying experience without feeling like, well, get ready for the sequel. The movies never feel like that.
And they did such a great job of conceiving of what would have brought people back out there, and like the greediness, or like the capitalism and behind Weyland-Yutani being like, we need to start colonizing these places.
Ron Burgundy flew to word, best time for a pee break. Probably as they're getting off the spaceship to jump on the planet, you could probably run and pee one out, and you're not missing much for about 90 seconds.
Pee one out?
Yeah, you can pee one out.
Is that a phrase?
Or you could just pee.
Pee out like a face hugger?
Pee out your face hugger and your chest buster.
You check face hugger on Pornhub.
Check pee one out. It's a good porn search.
Oh, yeah.
So you're saying when they first land on the planet?
Yeah, it's slow.
Yeah,
just
okay.
Hop on there. Was there a better title for this movie? Fuck no.
No, Alien is one of the great... Alien and Jaws, I'm just like, got it.
So they originally called it Star Beast.
Yeah.
That sucks.
That's not good.
Yeah.
Star Beast.
That's very bad.
Best quote, would you go with, I got you, son of a bitch? Or would you go, Ash saying, a perfect organism. Its structural perfection is matched only by its hostility.
Ash.
I like that one too.
I admire its purity, its sense of survival, unclouded by conscience, remorse, or delusions of morality. He's basically describing Philadelphia 76ers fan. We did what we had to do to get Embiid the MVP.
And now we pay the cost. My other best quote is when they're sitting around and Ripley says to Brett, he says, whenever he says anything, you say, right, Brett. You know that? And he's like, right.
All right, hottest take. Do you have one?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The chest burster is the most rewatchable scene and is in some ways the most memorable and iconic moment in the scene. The Tom Skerritt scene is scarier. It is claustrophobic. It's in the dark. It's being
especially in a movie theater.
Narrated by Veronica Cartwright. It's got the doo doo doo. It's coming, and the jump out is the scary. It's like probably like a top 3 or 4 jump scare for me because you see it's arms.
Exorcist 3 #1.
Yeah, the garden shears. Fuck yes, Bill. Exorcist 3.
Speaking of making you wait for it,
I've never been more scared in a movie
than
than Exorcist 3, which is a terrible movie for the most part. And then that one
Patrick
scene
Ewing,
happened.
Apex Mountain, though.
My mom and my stepdad went to see the original Friday the 13th, and somebody was sitting right in front of them. And when Jason came out of the lake at the end, the guy jumped up and screamed, "Fuck no!" and jumped over his seat. I really wish I'd been there for that.
Oh my God.
You have a hottest take?
I'm not sure if the rewatchables exist without this movie.
Oh.
Because I think Ridley becoming Ridley leads to Tony becoming Tony, his brother.
Yeah.
And in some respect, we haven't done the most, like that many Ridley movies, but I think that they have a kind of patron saintage around the show.
Well, you guys won't do Someone to Watch Over Me with me.
What are you talking about?
All right, you will? You will?
I will do a 10-part podcast about Mimi Rogers if you want.
Roger Ebert shat on that movie in his 2003 Alien review. It like fucking hurt my
dad,
feelings.
Berenger, he appears in that
Which
film.
Ridley's
that movie's unbelievable. It just has a bad
Gladiator,
ending.
This.
I think there's a lot on the board still to do. Black Hawk Down, I think, is a rewatchable.
We have a couple because Blade Runner is one of the ones we were saving.
Oh, yeah.
I think the bigger point is more like Ridley, as much as Steven Spielberg and a handful of other people, introduced this kind of like big tent, mainstream, sophisticated movie making that, every 5 to 7 years he makes a movie in a slightly different genre Sometimes it's Swords and Sandals. Sometimes it's Thelma and Louise. Sometimes it's a sci-fi movie. But he is like the master of the mega set piece. He makes so many. I was listening to you and Brian Windhorst, and Windhorst made a Thelma and Louise reference. And I was like, that's like a 30-year-old movie.
Yeah.
And he's referencing the ending of that movie to make a comparison to the NBA. Like his stuff is just in the blood of movies now. And
we edited
so
out Windhorst's House of Gucci.
Doing the
like
Jared
three
Leto.
of those.
That's too bad.
Leto
Yeah,
voice.
yeah.
I thought that I think it's like when you really think about it, it's about the details with him. And the fact that he storyboarded out this entire movie and essentially drew it and it was in his head. And then on the set was like constantly like adjusting a light or like what something looked like or the texture of something to sometimes the expense of working with the actors, which actually wound up working. It's just like that's what makes a rewatchable movies. You can keep going back and be like, oh, I didn't notice that before. Or now I'm looking at the walls of the spaceship and it's like, who thought of this? You know, who thought of like all the tubing against this? It's just, it's what keeps you coming back.
My Stephen A. Smith House Take Award. Craig, this is for you. I feel like you would do this if you were sitting here. Kill the fucking cat. A. B. Movie cats are the fucking worst. They're the worst. Name 3 fun movie cats in a movie that have been in like an action, thriller, comedy, anything where you're like, oh, you know what really helped the movie? The cat. All the cat does.
So you don't like the
cats
cat
suck.
in the movie at all?
I just don't like cats. What does the cat do in this movie? Just lures people to the alien?
Yeah.
It kind of seems like it's into what the alien's doing. It's like, oh, good kill, alien. It's like, yeah. You're staring in the eyes. It's like, cool.
Yeah.
Loved how he ripped his chest out and pulled his head off. I think cats are creepy. I don't like them. I've never wanted a cat. Fuck cats.
Okay.
That's my hottest take.
That's a very strong take.
Thank you.
We should definitely cut this out and share this on social media. Fuck cats. Bill Simmons.
I would also say...
Name me the fun pop culture cat. What are the crucial cats? We have 700 million dogs. They make dog movies every fucking year.
Yeah.
They make 3 dog movies a year. We have Dog's Purpose. There's literally a movie called
Marley
Dog.
and Me.
There's 4 John Wick movies based on the fact that they fucked with his dog. What is the cat movie? The only person who likes cats is Mallory Rubin, and that's it.
Can you imagine Mal as a member of the crew of the Nostromo and how she would be centering Jonesy?
Everyone else would have died, so fucking Jonesy could have lived 2 more years and drank milk on the fucking table.
But Mal does have some Ripley vibes. You know,
She really does.
She's very smart.
What about the cat in The Godfather?
Pretty good.
Yeah, so it's a prop. It's a prop that evil people
It's the evil villain pet prop. It's the Dr. Evil.
Evil villain pet prop.
Did you just
Mr.
Google
Bigglesworth?
movie
I guess
cats?
Mr. Bigglesworth is a good movie
Great
cat.
one. I like the one in.
So as a prop for villains, cats are great, which proves my
Here's
point. Cats suck.
I think it's not consistent within the course of the movie where it's like, this is just a fucking cat that's hanging out on this spaceship for years.
Yeah.
And nobody in this movie seems particularly like paternal about the cat. Like they're not like, oh, I'll be the caretaker here. And then
the
at
cat
the
sucks.
end, Ripley is like, we've got to make sure Jonesy lives. I got to go back for this cat carrier. And that's crazy to me. She has seen this thing impregnate and burst through the cavities of multiple people. And she's like, I got to make sure this cat makes it into the cryo chamber.
Also, how do you know the alien didn't jump into Jonesy?
Yeah.
And we're going to have a John Hurt situation. On the scale of, I can't believe this person is going back for their pet, it's this in the finals versus James Brolin in the Amityville Horror. After they escape the house, blood and like black sewage is just coming out of the walls. There's voices. The hell is in the basement. The gateway to hell is in the basement. He's seen it. And they're leaving and the kids are like, wait, you forgot Gus. And he's like, you're right.
Do we think there's a practical reason why the cat is there? Or is it just for their sanity?
I think it's I think it's supposed to be like, this is nice. There's like a cat on board.
Comfort.
Yeah.
I think there's also a storytelling reason why we see the cat alongside the alien, which is, that they're both predators and animals, and you're supposed to see this connection between them, and that it's like a warning sign to Ripley not to worry about the cat.
The idea, so is save the cat from this is like the concept of like you have somebody save the cat so that you...
It must be.
Okay.
It must be.
I dated a girl once who had a cat, and I went down to get a drink because her parents were gone. I was sleeping over her house, and in the foyer, the cat had this mouse trapped in the corner and was crouched, and the mouse was terrified. And anytime the mouse tried to move, the cat was just like absolute predator, apex predator mode. And I'm like, cats are fucking crazy.
Have you ever had a cat?
No.
No. I've had cats.
I've had many cats. They're perfectly nice.
Yeah, they're really normal.
It's really fine.
I just wouldn't take them to space with me.
I'm in hottest take mode right now. I'm not in actual mode.
I hate cats.
Yeah.
I
cats
think
suck.
if you wanted to have the Stephen A. versus Mad Dog moment, you needed to have Mal on
You're
for this
Catrick
segment.
Perkins right now.
Yeah. It's a horrible joke.
Catrick Perkins. Casting what ifs. So they wrote the entire cast. They wrote the entire cast as men, but said the crew's unisex, all parts are interchangeable. Ripley was not female, which is, I think, is just an amazing tidbit.
Mm-hmm.
They had no idea that Ridley was going to do that. Ridley was choosing between Sigourney Weaver and a classmate of hers from Yale, kid by the name of Meryl Streep. And
Whatever happened to her?
Weaver got the job because Streep was mourning the death of our guy, John Cazale. And that's how Sigourney Weaver ends up in Alien. Meryl Streep in this movie.
Could have done it.
Yeah, sure. It works.
Could have done it.
There's
she
a
can play
physicality.
Margaret
Maybe
Thatcher. She can probably play Ripley. Yeah.
I'm not betting against Meryl Streep in a movie role, especially a good movie with a good director.
She's not as physically imposing as Sigourney Weaver. Isn't Sigourney Weaver like 5'10"?
Yeah.
She's big. Meryl Streep seems like a more
I think she
average
might be
height.
like 5'11".
Yeah. So that would be a difference, but what can't Meryl Streep play?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't. It's hard to imagine it without Sigourney, but that's pretty close to what I would choose if I.
It made me think like 1975 Yale, and there's some girl that's like a junior who's really into acting. It's like, I think I have a chance in the school the school play.
We're doing
There's this
Midsummer's
great
Night's
part.
Dream. It's like good fucking luck.
Who are you going against? Sigourney and Meryl, but I think I have a shot. And then that person dropped out of college. Harrison Ford turned down the role of Captain Dallas. How do we feel about this?
Fine, because he's in Star Wars and Blade Runner and everything. It's not like Harrison Ford then went on to like shovel coal for the rest of his life.
I think Tom Skerritt is good in this movie, but it is a better movie with Harrison Ford because Harrison Ford just improves the quality of acting and the tone and the interplay between, there was supposed to be this kind of love scene between
Dallas
and Ripley. And, Sigourney and Harrison Ford and Working Girl go on to kind of consummate that, like they would have had chemistry, which would have been interesting for the movie.
Cartwright read for Ripley, thought she was being cast as Ripley, showed up in London, and they were like, no, you're going to be Lambert. Tough beat.
Is that true? I mean, that's
that was in
story
all the
if it's
research.
True. Yeah. I read that too. And I was
she said that she showed up in England assuming she was going to play Ripley.
So no one told her?
Yeah, she just got like fucked up, and then she was like, "I'm doing my wardrobe fitting, and they're giving me like Lambert's clothes."
Ridley Scott was like,
but it kind of plays into like, I don't think Lambert and Ripley like each other that much in the movie.
Yeah,
your South Africa story. This is so crazy. It must be true. John Hurt said he was banned from South Africa when he went to film the movie because the country mistook him for John Hurd, who had been a strong opponent of apartheid and couldn't get in the country, so had to drop out of the movie. And then the other guy got diabetes, and there you go. All of a sudden, he's an alien. He was the first choice, though.
Yeah.
You believe that story?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
There was a 6'10" Nigerian student who played the lead alien, Bolaji Badejo. Didn't really go on anything else.
Okay.
I don't know where he was for Predator, why they didn't like cue him up.
The way that they describe it is that he has vanished.
Yeah.
Like the research is like he was never heard from again.
Yeah.
Which is kind of suspicious.
That's weird.
Maybe the fucking cat killed him.
Yeah. Maybe just followed Jonesy off the edge of the world.
What do you have for Ruffalo, Hannah, Rubinek, Partridge overacting word?
Cartwright, although it's like, is it overacting when you get sprayed with a gallon of pig's blood? I don't know, but she fucking goes for it. Oh no!
Well, there are reasons for that, right? Because Ridley doesn't share a lot with them about what's going to happen. Only John Hurt knows specifically how the mechanics of the chest bursting is going to work. But then even more so, it doesn't work. It just bursts forward. It pushes the shirt and spurts blood, but doesn't break through. So when she gets splattered, she doesn't really know what to expect. She doesn't know it's going to spray that hard. But then furthermore, they capture more shocking reactions from the actors because they basically have to do it 3 different times. And then they cut together these 3 different attempts at the chest bursting that gives it this almost like psychedelic feeling
Yeah.
of them experiencing that in real time. I mean, it's one of the like classic mistake that leads to greatness. It's so similar to Jaws where Bruce wouldn't work. And so
Right.
they have to hold back from showing you Jaws. And it's always these like lucky moments that lead to iconic sequences.
Best that guy award. It's got to be Ian Holm, right? I just knew him as Ash.
Yeah, I mean, there's 7 people in this movie, so it's kind of hard to. And then they're all pretty well-known actors. I mean, Ian Holm goes on to be in the fucking Hobbit, so it's like, it's tough, you know.
Yeah.
Dion Waiters.
Is it Hurt? Is Hurt Dion?
I mean, our guy Yaphet really dials it up a couple times.
Hurt only is in 4
Oh yeah,
scenes.
you're right.
So it's like Yaphet is essentially the second lead of the movie in some ways.
Maybe the ward doesn't exist. There's only 7 characters.
It's a tough one. I think it's hard to give out because all these people are well known.
Definitely not Jonesy. Recasting couch. You were talking about Tom Skerritt. I can kind of put that in my back pocket. What about our guy Jim Caan, aka James Caan, aka Big Time Jimmy?
as Dallas?
Yeah,
I like that.
it's better, right? It's a better movie.
I think Berenger is also in the mix there.
Is he too young though?
Probably.
I would say it's got to be somebody who's around the Tom Skerritt age. The thing with Skerritt, I like Tom Skerritt. Unbelievable in Top Gun. Awesome in Top Gun.
As Viper.
Poison Ivy, a little not, maybe not as good.
Steel Magnolias?
Yeah, he's
Skerritt?
had good moments. That part needs a bigger 70s star. Burt Reynolds is too big. Our guy Jimmy Caan's right around the.
I'm just imagining Dallas turning to Ripley and saying, "Let's cut the mini moves and the bullshit and get on with this big romance."
You have your hands in my pocket.
Half-assed internet research. Sigourney's salary for Alien Resurrection was more than the entire cost of Alien. Conceptual artist Ron Cobb came up with the idea that the alien should bleed acid. Forgot to put that on What Stage the Best. It was a great idea.
Great idea.
Yeah.
Also, perfectly executed. The one shot of the acid burning through.
Yeah.
It's genius.
I like when somebody's like, "Don't touch it." It's like, yeah, but I wasn't planning on it.
And they use that to such a great effect in the second one because it's always like, spraying on people and shit.
They borrowed the blue laser. They borrowed the blue laser lights from the alien ship's egg chamber
This
from
was
The
gonna be
Who.
mine. Yeah, they were rehearsing like next door. That would be pretty cool. Shepperton, you just walk in, Ridley Scott's making Alien in one room and the fucking Who were rehearsing in the other room.
Wow.
Great day.
What's 79? Is that like Who's Next? What era is that?
I think they were like getting ready for. When did Keith Moon die?
Oh, it's right around then.
He basically had the same thing that Kane died from.
Face hugging, chest bursting alien.
Yeah, I think that's how he
I
died.
think it was alcoholism, actually.
I think he was doing a concert and an alien jumped out of his chest in the form of a Jack Daniels bottle.
Keith Moon died in 78, so maybe it was their first tour without him.
The director's cut has Lambert slapping Ripley.
It's cool too. Like they did it a bunch of times and Sigourney kept ducking the punch. So like Ridley just had Veronica Cartwright hit her with the other from like the left.
Oh.
Because he's like, she's going to duck it. So hit her a different way. And she just like completely connects.
Right.
And you can see Sigourney be like, what the fuck? And go after her.
Right. Like Ollie and Foreman in the
like,
Rumble
even
in the
Meryl
Jungle.
didn't do this.
Yeah.
In junior year. This was in all the research that Ridley Scott told Yaphet Kotto to annoy Sigourney Weaver off camera.
Mm-hmm.
That's always a weird director thing that pops up in
Mind
some
games?
of the
I don't
research
think
where
it
they're
happens
like,
as
I don't
much.
like my
Yeah.
cast members to like each other.
I don't think they do that anymore.
Only
Yeah.
Jeremy Strong
We
does
haven't
that
really
now.
heard about that happening since like Fincher doing Zodiac and making those guys like piss in jars and stuff like that. But like, I think it's pretty much like shut down. If you're doing that to people will just be like, I'm going to do a Twitter thread about how you're a tyrant.
Jesse Armstrong's to Jeremy Strong, like, act like a fucking asshole at all times, even when we're not filming. And he's like, done.
I don't think he needs to be asked to do it.
He's like, you didn't even have to ask. You mentioned the chest bursting scene was a multiple taker. To get Jones the cat to react fearfully to the descending alien, they put a German shepherd between him with the screen and then removed the screen.
So this cat's not even that good of an actor. It needs like
Fucking
another
cat.
prop to fucking motivate it.
terrible.
Yeah.
Ash's android head was made out of a combination of milk, caviar, pasta, and glass marbles.
Hmm.
And then to John Hurt, he stuck his head, shoulder, and arms through a hole in the mess table. and then linked up with a mechanical torso that had a bunch of animal guts. And it worked really well and didn't smell great. And the cast was horrified. And apparently Yaphet Kotto was fucked up by it for a couple hours.
My favorite internet research bit is when they have Lambert and Kane and Dallas walking around in the spacesuits. Like there was no oxygen.
Yeah,
really.
they're just passing out.
So they're just like passing out. And
Yeah.
they're like, really, what the fuck, man? Like we're like passing out every time we do a shot. And he's like, yeah.
They had medics with oxygen.
Finally, he does a take because he wants, like, for scale, he puts his 2 kids in the spacesuits and they pass out. And he's like, well, we got to do something about this. This is terrible.
The 70s were unbelievable.
Yeah.
The dead face hugger was made out of oysters, a sheep kidney, and fresh shellfish. Sounds delicious. 4 different cats played Jones.
They needed 4 cats to do that.
They needed 4 cats to
So
ruin
just
the
so I'm
movie.
clear, your take is they should all be killed, and we should be able to see that
He doesn't
imagery.
like the cats. I just think that at a certain point, it's beyond belief that she's like the crucial thing here. Before I self-destruct this ship, or once the clock is ticking, is that I'm going back for this cat.
It's a thematic idea that the whole franchise comes back to with Sigourney and Newt, and then Sigourney's relationship to the Winona Ryder character in the 4th film, Sigourney's relationship to the prisoners on 3. Like, she is like an empathetic figure who's constantly trying to save the innocents, and that's like one of the reasons why the audience connects to her. The problem is that if you don't care about cats, it just doesn't work. And if you're not a cat guy, so
I'm a dog guy, and even dogs, I would have been like, just get in the fucking pod.
Or it's like supposed to depict the flaw in humans. Like that's the difference between the alien and Sigourney.
the empathy, exactly.
You know?
Speaking of flaws, Ridley took some shit for the underwear stuff, including from our guy Big Jim Cameron, who said, I hated that scene when I saw it. I vowed if I became a director, I would never make women shoot scenes like that again. Just a fucking blowhard at all times. Never passing up a chance to be a huge blowhard.
Well,
hold on. Here's a chance for me to be moral superior to Ridley Scott. I'm just going to take it.
Yeah.
Fucking asshole. He's right. It's just he's a blowhard.
I mean, yes and no too. Like, it's not like he didn't shoot Kate Winslet in the nude in Titanic. It's not like he's like has a moral opposition to
Kate's
sexiness.
got her hand up against the fucking window in the
He's
car.
Like, but God forbid I put somebody in underwear before they get into cryo sleep.
What a blowhard.
I think it's very, very defensible, in part because of what I was saying before about like how she becomes like more vulnerable when she has her clothes off.
Yeah.
I think like what her underwear is there's some debate to be had there. She definitely could have just been wearing like shorts.
In the
that would have been fine.
Long history
Boxers.
of objectifying women on screen in the 1970s. I find this to be like a misdemeanor.
It's not top
but
20. Director's cut came about because they discovered 100 boxes of footage in a London vault in the early 2000s.
They're going to do that with this pod?
Amazing. Sean mentioned some of the rape stuff and all the sexual perversity of this movie. And if you want to go down that rabbit hole, people listening, it is plentiful.
Yeah.
There's a lot of hours to be spent.
So many texts written about this.
You can find a lot. Oh, I like this one. They found Sigourney Weaver because Walter Hill and somebody else were watching Mad Men and they liked it. So they scouted it. And then they were impressed by Michael Beck, who was also the lead of Mad Men. And that led to Walter Hill, my guy, being like, let's get that guy in the Warriors. Yeah. He's going to play Swan. Bring him in.
What Walter Hill movies have we done? The Warriors?
48 hours.
48 hours. Anything else?
Does there need to be anything else?
We dial up Southern Cross if you ever want to.
He did 48 hours in The Warriors in the span of 3 years.
Should we do Streets of Fire? It's
That's a bad movie. I can't defend that one.
Another 48
no
hours
way,
is a
Bill.
tough
Yeah,
watch.
it's tough. Fat Eddie's tough in that movie. Yeah. Just
What about Last Man Standing?
Oh, the Bruce Willis one?
Yeah, his Kurosawa remake with Bruce Willis shooting up a town.
Apex Mountain. Sigourney's Aliens 2, right? Post Ghostbusters, then Aliens 2.
Girl.
Come on.
Yeah.
It doesn't get bigger than that for her.
Yeah, mid-'80s, I think, yeah.
John Hurt's probably Elephant Man coming off Alien.
Mm-hmm. He was nominated for an Oscar, right?
Harry Dean Stanton, what do you got?
Well, I was going to say, I guess Paris, Texas, but Paris, Texas is like,
No.
It's not like that's like a popular film. It's more of like a beloved film.
Probably his most iconic role, yeah.
It's somewhere in the 80s with the Red Dawn, Pretty in Pink. He's just everywhere. Escape from New York. He's just in everything for like 6 years.
I just feel like his apex mountain is like 25 consecutive years of sitting on Jack Nicholson's couch drinking Jim Beam.
Yeah.
You know, like he's just in a perpetual state of
What did
I'm
you
the
think
man.
of the Jack Nicholson photos?
I think he looks great, honestly.
Yeah.
I don't have shit to say.
I was glad he was
he's great.
alive.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call him oriented.
I mean, when would you have ever described him that way?
I was worried that he's
they
just
didn't say
alone.
when they took the pictures. Was it like 7:30 in the morning and he's going to get his LA Times?
Yeah.
It's interesting that he has completely receded from view.
Well, he's something probably happened. I mean, he probably has dementia or something's going on.
Perhaps.
He didn't look that much different than he did in The Departed, to be honest.
He didn't. That's what I said. Physically, he seemed like he was,
He's waving that dildo around. Yeah.
You think that's what he was doing back inside? Nice.
Tom Skerritt, Top Gun.
Mm-hmm.
Yaphet Kotto. It's got to be Homicide.
I would say
right?
Homicide. I
mean,
mean,
for
for
us-
premiered Homicide after the Super Bowl.
For us,
man.
it's Midnight Run, though.
He was one of the stars of Live and Let Die in 1973.
But then you look at his IMDb and it led to literally nothing.
Yeah, he did some cool movies.
I think that movie actually hurt him for a couple of
You
years.
think so?
Yeah. Because you just become the crazy
the
villain
parody.
from that movie.
Yeah.
Ridley Scott, no. Alien movies, no.
What's Ridley? Is it Gladiator?
Yeah, I think we did when we did Gladiator. I think we actually said that.
The Troy from Reality Bites answer would be Blade Runner.
But it's not though because of what you said.
Yeah.
Right. That it wasn't a financial success.
How about Apex Mountain for dripping and secreting?
I think you got to check out that Chris's Pornhub tab for the answer to that one.
That's another. That's another.
Put that one in there
saved
too,
search.
CR.
Yeah.
Cats? Movie Cats?
I think Craig was a good shout. The cat sitting on Vito Corleone's lap is a pretty iconic one. I would say Hawaiian shirts in space. Wearing a Hawaiian shirt in space.
You did have the Harry Dean
it's a very
style for a minute.
influential look.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the hat.
the long sleeve thermal under the Hawaiian shirt, trucker hat.
But did you consciously adopt that?
No, but it was one of those looks that I was like, that guy's fucking timeless. Look at this dude.
How about stealth Joe Conrad references?
Quite a few.
Yeah. This in Apocalypse Now. Joe Conrad, a big guy for you? One of your guys?
Not one of my guys.
You love to go up the river.
He has
That's one
some
of your
tough
things.
titles in the old archive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Best racehorse name. Three of the best one. This might be the best category I've ever had for this. I have the Nostromo.
Mm-hmm.
I have Jonesy, and I have Space Jockey.
Space Jockey.
Space Jockey is an incredible name
Chef's
for a
kiss.
horse.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's good. Space Jockey.
Picky nits. Not nearly scared enough about the alien being on John Hurt's astronaut mask.
Yeah.
I think I would be so much more scared and terrified every time.
There's just a
They're
complete
calm about it.
hierarchical breakdown once they like break quarantine. It's just like, well, who's calling the shots here? Who's making decisions?
Yeah, it becomes like Succession. Meanwhile, the guy's got an alien on his face.
That very telling sequence where when things get too serious, Dallas starts, giving more power to Ash and saying like, this is a science issue and I'm not going to make this decision. Whereas like, that's not really how it should operate in a situation like that. It's like, if you're the captain,
He's
the
like,
captain.
I work here.
Right.
That's it. It's not like I'm not like an admiral.
Right.
This is the rare case where they needed the horror movie motif of the one person in the crew who kind of freaks out about the alien on the face, which should have been Veronica Cartwright.
Yeah.
But
What are we going to do about the alien on the face?
That's one of my possibly unanswerable questions. I think Lambert and Kane have a little something going. So that's why because she looks at him very affectionately throughout the first part of the movie.
Think she like snuck out of her sleep pod to
Just
climb
a
into the
little
other pod?
Big spoon, little spoon for a couple months.
Another picky nit. It still hasn't been explained to me why they brought a cat to outer space. Still looking for the right answer on that one.
Why not a dog, I guess? And do you think a dog would have been any more helpful in this situation?
Why a pet? You're going to outer space. Who wants a pet?
I think
Where's the pet shitting? Like, where's the kitty litter going? It's just, I don't get it.
These are the big questions.
Yeah.
I don't want an animal on my space mission. I love dogs. I have 4 dogs. Wouldn't want any of them going, not even Murph, my favorite dog. Wouldn't bring him.
No, Olivia couldn't make it.
Olivia would get shot out in that little space thing. What else do you have for picking nits?
I mean, I find
Did we
this movie
cover
to
everything?
be like really tight. So it's hard to like really
Yeah,
pick at
me
it.
too.
And when you watch it the first time, you're like, why is he reacting this way? You go back and be like, oh, he's a fucking android. So a lot of the Ash stuff is like,
Yeah.
hey, my guy, like, why won't you let them operate? Or why won't you freeze it? Or why won't you do this? And it's like, oh, because you're working for this corporation.
I have more unanswerable questions than nitpicks.
Same. I mean, Chris, before we even started, was like, well, how do you pick a nit in this movie? And the only one that I could really think of was what we've discussed, which is if this guy was infected with an alien creature on his face, you could not get me to sit in the same ship as him. Like I'm so germophobic.
Movie hits different post-COVID.
Yeah, it's so funny
Yeah.
when Ash and Dallas are operating on him or like looking, like thinking about maybe cutting or whatever. And then they put him inside that little like scanner box. And Ash is like, yeah, you can take your mask off now. It's like, I'll fucking keep it on. How about that?
Right. And then Kevin Durant convinced him to join Brooklyn with him. Oh, no, that was Kyrie. Sequel, prequel, prestige TV, all black cast, or untouchable.
We should consider remaking this film with the roster of the 2022 Brooklyn Nets. I think just put them all on the ship.
They all died one at a time.
But it's
basically.
Ben Simmons is the last, is Ripley. He's last.
Well, they did a sequel, and did they do a prequel too?
Yeah, they've done
that's
prequels.
Covenant and Prometheus are prequels.
So
And now
this
they're
is definitely not untouchable.
and they're making a prestige TV show.
all black
No,
cast.
and
I
a
would
film.
watch
The Fede Alvarez is making a movie now.
Yeah, but Noah Hawley's making a TV show.
prestige. So
It's a lot of Alien.
it's almost what is the EGOT? It's almost an EGOT.
Yeah, they got to do a stage play.
No, they need an all black cast one.
Oh yeah,
Just got to get that done.
Yeah.
Tyler Perry's Alien.
It's like a distant sequel to The Color Purple,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's all set on the ship.
Is this movie better with Wayne Jenkins, Danny Trejo, Catherine Odd, Steve Buscemi, Samuel L. Jackson, J.T. Welsh, or Philip Baker
So
Hall?
just imagine Wayne Jenkins coming in when Yaphet Kotto does when Ash is freaking out. He's like, God damn, Ash! I didn't know you were a humanoid with fucking milk for blood. I'll tell you what, big dog, you're going to cryo sleep a long fucking time, man. Get him the fuck out of here.
I can't even look at you and you do
What
it.
you got that magazine down her throat for? That's Ripley, man. Let her breathe.
I think Wade would have some thoughts about the cat too. Get the fucking cat out of here.
That's great.
I swear to God, Ripley, if you go back to that cat one more time, man, I'm gonna let fucking Ash take you.
That's good.
Just won Oscar. Who gets it? This
Ridley.
movie did win an Oscar.
I would give it to Ridley. Yeah.
What won the 1979 directing Oscar? Now I have to look.
I'm trying to remember. This was the year what? Norma Ray is 1979. Oh, Kramer versus Kramer, I think, and I think it's Benton. And it's an interesting thing to look at the nominees because most of the movies are these like frightful family dramas or like social dramas, and Alien would have been weird. What is it?
Benton for Kramer versus Kramer.
Yeah.
Chris's guy Bob Fosse for All That Jazz.
I mean,
Coppola for Apocalypse. Peter Yates for Breaking Away.
what a fucking year.
And Molinaro for La Cage aux Folles.
There's a La Cage aux Folles was not nominated for Best Picture. So what are the Best Picture?
Kramer, All That Jazz, Apocalypse, Breaking Away, Norma Ray.
And Norma Ray, yeah.
The Alien wasn't getting nominated for Best Director, but in retrospect, it has to be one of the five if we're redoing the 1980 Oscars. I
Indisputably, yeah.
think it's in there.
Or if you were giving Academy Awards to cats.
Is this film in your top 25 movies of all time?
It's a great question.
I would say it's in like your top 15, isn't it?
No, I think it's probably, when I get down to it, it's probably top 20, top 25.
Not for me.
Okay.
I really like it. It's not in the top 25. I got to make that list at some
I would love
point.
to see that list.
You know, I found a list that I made in like 1992.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take a picture
Do you
of it
ever
and
do
send it
that?
to you.
Do you ever do the top 25, top 100?
I like to
time?
do it by decades. I have a hard time doing it all time because my opinion changes a lot. I also feel like I haven't seen anything. I feel like I've got like 5,000 movies I want to see.
This guy.
Letterbox community. I had
Talking
40.
about secreting. Yeah.
40 I think in 92 I had 48 Hours, Halloween, Midnight
48
Run,
Hours was the greatest movie
and
of all time.
Godfather were my 4 favorites.
Your favorites. I think there's something. Yeah.
Favorite. Yeah. Aliens in my top 25 favorites.
Oh, that was what you were
That was what I
asking,
was-
right?
I was thinking, I thought you were meant like, do I think of one of the
no,
greatest?
I'm-
yeah, it's
It's
one of
in
my
your
favorites.
faves.
Yeah, for
Is
sure.
it top 10, top 15?
No, it's top 20. It's top 20.
It's been a big subject of. We've talked about it a lot over the years, like not professionally, just like
Mhm.
in bars. Like it's always felt like a movie that is circling your head.
Yeah, especially as I've done more outer space mining. It's just really resonates.
Yeah, you've got all that ore back to this country.
Is it one of your top 4 science fiction alien movies?
Definitely.
Is it higher than the Amy Adams movie that you guys both think
Arrival?
is good? Yeah,
I think Alien is I like Arrival. I like Alien more than Arrival. Yes.
good.
Okay.
Probably unanswerable questions. Why does a commercial towing vehicle need a self-destruct mechanism? And what's going on with all the ore?
Bill, that's a fucking
Where are they
awesome
bringing it
question,
back?
man. Well, they're bringing it back to Earth. They probably got to.
But where are they like, hey, coming in?
She's saying Antarctica Station. Like there's obviously like active space business going on.
So Antarctica's booming in 2052, wherever we are?
It's very possible. I mean, we see in The Thing a couple of years later, right? The idea of like using Antarctica as like a future natural resource and a place to store things.
Little did they know it would fall into the ocean by 2052.
Not ideal. Really not. They didn't really predict climate
They really
change.
missed that one. And TikTok. There's two
That's
big
right.
misses
They
of the
missed
science
TikTok.
fiction
We should have
movies.
had Dallas watching. What would be 1979 House of Highlights? Is Dallas sitting there watching fucking Dave DeBuscher throw inbounds passes?
Dallas is like, another good Josiah Johnson tweet. Can I read it to you guys? Another probably unanswerable question. The sports would just drive me crazy being asleep in a pod for that long. It would be my first
Oh my God,
question.
it would be amazing.
I wouldn't want to know, what is my family okay?
How did it take you like an hour and a half to get
Well,
to this?
Well,
Well,
yeah,
no,
for
because you know what the
Answers.
fucking craziest thing is when you go on vacation and you get back, you're like, I have to do a 3-hour solo pod just going through everything that happened.
Right.
The Sox lost 3 in a row.
Right.
You know, like
I'm coming out of that pod and I'm like, what happened? Who won the
Yeah.
Super Bowl? Who was the number 1 pick of the NBA draft?
Is it at this stage of your life? Are you more interested in the kind of mainstream national news events, or what happened with the Celtics, the Pats, the Sox? Like, what do you look for first?
My answer at every single stage of my life would have been the sports.
The
I would have wanted to
mainstream
know
stuff.
I would have had 5 sports questions first, then be like, so any world wars?
But
Any
like,
assassinations?
You-
That would have been
I'm
like
trying
10
to think of
minutes
the
in.
the funniest time for you to have been out for 10 months.
Well, the
like-
time I would have picked was any time in the late 90s when all my teams were terrible.
But even like it would be amazing if you were like asleep during 2016 and I was like, you missed the best game ever between the Thunder and the Warriors and now Trump's president.
The Trump's president thing, definitely, I would have been like, I'm going back in the pod. I'll see you guys in a couple
you
months.
probably could have passed in the last 10 months of New England Patriots.
Yeah, but then
You would have
I-
missed the Celtics.
and an incredible Bruins season that I've been
Yeah.
kind of quietly watching and not talking about.
You would have been.
You
fine
did a
with that.
pot of it yesterday.
Here's one for you, CR. And it just made me think of with Walter Hill and John Carpenter and
Yeah.
some of the awesome people we had in the late 70s. If you moved to LA and you were getting a job in a production company or a studio, like kind of like mailroom / answering phones, being like a hustler, who would you pick out of everybody who was working at that time? Would you want to be in the Coppola thing? Because like Walter
that
Hill
was-
is like in the mix for me.
I think the Coppola one would have been a little bit financially unstable.
Yeah, that's true. You
Because
would have
it's
gotten
just
fired.
like every 5 days that guy's liquidating his winery to make a movie.
Sean would have been like, I'm working for Robert Altman and he's got this great idea for Popeye and I think it's going to work.
I mean, the
That would've
answer
been tough.
probably, if you're looking to like make money, is to work for Spielberg or Lucas. To work for
True.
Lucas.
To make him, but what's the coolest job like for us? It's probably like John Carpenter or Walter Hill, right?
Being Paul Schrader's secretions guy.
Paul Schrader. Schrader's the darkest one.
Most of those guys didn't have production companies, like Scorsese and De Palma, and they didn't try to expand in the way that some of those other
but they
guys
must have
did.
like an office with a couple people.
Oh, sure,
Yeah.
definitely. I mean, Scorsese is obviously who I would want to be. I would want to be watching him. I mean, that's like
There's so
Taxi
much
Driver,
cocaine though. I
Raging
would argue
Bull.
Scorsese's a bad choice.
The story about like
It's like, Sean, I need you to go
Scorsese and-
downtown and get me a dime
I
bag.
get to say for the rest of my life, I was working for Martin Scorsese when he made Raging Bull.
When he
Okay.
made Last Waltz, apparently he and like Robbie Robertson just stayed up for like an entire summer doing cocaine and watching monster movies.
That sounds fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Does that sound not fun? That sounds super fun.
That's like when you came up with the idea for the movie about the making of Jaws, which somebody will steal at some point. Same thing for Robbie Robertson and Scorsese doing cocaine for an entire summer. That's just the movie.
It's an amazing
It's
Richard
Shia
Linklater
LaBeouf
movie.
and Adam Driver just fucking going to town.
Sold.
Scene 40.
I'm in.
We're out of cocaine. Best double feature choice with this movie. It's got to be Aliens 2.
It's just,
I don't know that there's no other answer.
There's also like Aliens just fills in a lot of stuff. I mean, like, so we could save it for when we do Aliens eventually as a rewatchable, but Aliens fills in a lot of stuff about Ripley that you didn't know.
The movie I most wanted to watch after I watched this was Prometheus.
Yeah.
That was the one, because that's the one that really answers a lot of the,
and it's Ridley.
the questions.
It's
and
him
Ridley
finally
Scott.
going back. The only other one I would mention is just because in some ways it's like if this doesn't happen, then probably none of this happens, is the first Carpenter movie, Dark Star, because O'Bannon works on that, and a lot of the stuff that they're like, oh, what if we had like a space ship that looked like shit, that looked like it had been beaten up and was used in war, and it like winds up.
Right. That was a comedy. This was their attempt to make a real horror movie.
Yeah.
Andy and Red Zwane Award. What happened the next day? Well, we know because they made Aliens 2 and 17 other sequels.
Yep. She wakes up and she has to talk to Paul Reiser a lot.
And she decides to buy normal size underwear. She's like, do you have any women's underwear? What piece of memorabilia would you want from this movie?
Definitely Dallas's Nostromo jacket. Like that kind of like
that's a
cool-
good one.
Yeah.
I was gonna say
That's
the
good.
flame shooter or the cane mask. Alien worn
Game-worn
mask.
cane-
Game-worn alien worn mask would be kind of cool.
What about the ash head? If we just had that right here for
Ash
the
head would
rewatchables?
freak me out. I actually thought about that and I decided I wouldn't want that. Like, imagine having that in their library. Oh, is that the ash head?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Ask him something.
I always feel like it's weird when people spend like $380,000 on movie memorabilia and then like build a room where they show it off. But you know, the alien, the xenomorph, that thing is one of the coolest things that has ever been designed and put into a movie. Like that actual original design would be, if I had to have like one really cool movie memorabilia thing, that would be on
Would
my
I
short
lean you
list.
into that?
I would probably put it in Alice's room. Just let her sleep with that every night.
My choice would have been the Shawshank Bible, and then it was for sale, and it went for like $500,000. It was like, oh, I needed a more realistic choice.
Wow,
$500,000. It was
Speaking
like
of kids, has Ben seen
$450,000.
this? Has Ben seen Alien?
No, he wouldn't last the first 30 minutes.
Too slow.
Yeah. You'd need to do TikTok version of Alien where it's just 5 minutes. Just shit happens. Coach Finstock Award, Best Life Lesson.
Leave the cat. I think it probably.
Leave the pet, I think, is always a
that's
good,
a good
lesson for these. Who won the movie? Ridley?
There's a case for Sigourney Weaver, right?
Yeah, I think it's really because it's like
I think it's Ridley too.
It's like
but Sigourney's a good runner-up.
it's It's if you want to know what the director difference is, it's this. It's like this guy reads the script and he's like, okay, this is what it's going to look like. This is how it's going to be lit. There's going to be smoke everywhere. These people are going to be sweaty. It's going to look like I'm going to do handheld. He operates the camera. I mean, like he's a five-tool guy here.
There's a couple categories we didn't do that are just funny that I probably should have thrown in. The Mallory Rubin Award for Did This Movie Need a Better Sex Scene? The Tom Cruise Award, Most Valiant Attempt to Emulate a Normal Human. I think that would go to Ash. The Cliff Booth Award for Is This Movie Better If the Main Character Had a Pet? Fucking no. We might have to have another category for the Ripley Award for This Character Should Not Have Had a Pet. And then the Vincent Chase Award for Are We Sure This Character Was Actually Good at His Job? I'm not sure any of these people are good at their job.
I don't think that this is what their
bring
jobs
the ore
were, though.
back. Yeah. Bring the ore back. You've one job. Craig, your thoughts?
I had seen this movie before, and watching it again, I think it's really one of my favorites, like all time. I think it's so good. I keep coming back to, same with 2001, A Space Odyssey, just how visually incredible these movies are and how they hold up. Like, there's probably not a CGI done in this movie, right? That wasn't even really possible back then.
Not
There were
digital.
hardly even
Yeah.
home computers.
They do stuff like with mirrors more than they do stuff with like computers.
I just like when
Miniatures,
movies,
a lot of miniatures.
I like when movies have to work within the confines of some restriction, whether it's like technologically limited or a budget, because I feel like it makes you have to make the production design, the lighting, the acting, the directing, everything else has to be so perfect and you can't rely on the crutch of CGI
Mm-hmm.
that I think this movie like looks better than Marvel. Like, I don't know if that's a hot take, but like, I really do think watching
by
this movie.
far.
Without question,
Yeah.
it looks better.
It's just
You're
insane
preaching
to
to
me.
our choir, Craig.
Yeah.
I fucking hate CGI. And a lot of the movies that we've really loved, even going back to like Deliverance when they were doing their own stunts in the water, like I'm just always going to like that more. The fact that Cruise, who's obviously a lunatic, but is actually doing his own stunts is fucking cool.
I just think practical effects, if done right, are always going to be better than CGI.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's just tough. I mean, it's like I was watching the new Indiana Jones trailer, and there's like a shot of Harrison Ford, who's like 80, jumping out of a plane with Phoebe Waller-Bridge, and just looks really fake. And it's like, I guess it's cool that they did it. It's like, I'm sure it's going to be a good movie, but it just doesn't look right to my eye.
The scary thing is that we are now fully 30 years out from the kind of true dawning of CGI with T2 and Jurassic Park. And so now you have an entire generation of movie fans who are kind of inured to it. You're an exception, I think, more than the rule, where it's just sort of like, this is what movies look like now.
and
They just look like that
You're
Indiana
like, Ben
Jones
would
scene.
turn this off in 5 seconds. That means he wouldn't also recognize like how it looks different.
There's also something I also think that knowing that it's practical makes me like the movie more. Like, even if Harrison Ford and Phoebe Waller-Bridge jumped out of that plane and it looked great and realistic, I would still know that it was fake.
Mhm.
And the fact that I know that this was real and the buttons on the ship are real and they built the ship makes me like it more.
Yeah.
There's a way to do it that and have it look good. It takes like 8 years and $200 million to make something that you feels real. You know, like there's one Jurassic Park. There are some examples where the CGI actually like elevates meaningfully, not just the
Avatar,
filmmaking,
yeah.
but the emotion that you have for the filmmaking, but it's rare.
They needed it for Rocky in the boxing scenes. It's really tough to see those empty seats in the Spectrum.
And it's something he could do.
Here's what it would be like for a 15-year-old watching Alien now. Yo, pause that. Watching Alien. Fucking alien just came out of somebody's chest. It's fucking crazy. Dude, how much longer is left in the movie? Hold on, I gotta do a live stream. Pause that. That's my 15-year-old impersonation. Thank you. Oh, and bro, saying bro a lot.
That's a
Bro.
Benism right now?
Ben's his
Hella.
bro.
Hella, okay.
Hella's
Hella?
This
bro.
stuff has been around
He
forever.
says hella?
Yeah, he
That's
says
usually
he's
a
like
Northern
surfer now?
California thing.
Cali
Hella.
kid, yeah.
Oh wow.
he's like lacrosse practice was hella tough
Oh,
today.
that's why. Because he's got the lacrosse.
He's turning that. I'm
He's
gonna have
lax,
to
bro.
beat
Yeah.
the shit out of him this week. I think.
I thought he's got like the upper hand on you now.
But I the first punch has to be when he's not looking. I still feel like if I attack first, I could still win.
Okay.
If it's just straight up, I'm
Just
losing.
eye rake. Yeah.
We locked up in the kitchen the other day for fun, and I just quit immediately. I'm like, "You're just stronger than me. How did this
Oh,
happen?"
wow.
Yeah, he's 180 now.
Yeah. You need to get really dirty. You need like the Mr. Fuji,
Yeah.
like
Right
dust
in-
in the eye.
And
you
kicking
know?
the balls,
Yeah.
all that stuff. All right, for Craig Horlbeck, Corey, thanks for joining us. We decided we're going to put this on YouTube at some point later in the week after everybody listens to it, and you can see our cool little studio that we use for FanDuel TV. We film a lot of fun stuff in there. CR, enjoyable. Fennessey, great. See you next week.
Enjoyable.